He is the director of DCIC and also the assistant director of DCRC as the Community Development Program. And he is going to talk to us about a lot what we know about, but give us an up-to-date about the future of our Putnam Block. And if you haven't been reading the banner, which I know some people don't read, other than
toxic soils have been removed off-site. There are some contaminated but non-toxic soils stored here, which have been removed from the site and will be buried on the site per EPA and State of Vermont DEC guidelines in phase 2 to take care of those safely. We have about $1 million left of environmental remediation on this portion of the site. BCIC just secured a $500,000 grant from the EPA to assist in that work. That's the maximum grant available from the EPA. So we're on our way to getting the site clean there as well. So this is the simplified version about what the funding looked like for the Putnam project. So looking at that top line, in total, and there are some things consolidated into others. For example, this debt line item, there are actually 5 separate loans that go into here. Several different grants to go into here, a couple of different tax credits to go into here, 3 or 4 different funds in here, 23 individuals here, and a number of equity providers there. In total, over 60 individuals or entities provided some form of equity to the project, again, including some people who are in this room. And we had 21 separate funding sources, and 23 third parties had to sign off on this project to get us to our $30.5 million, which is why U.S. Bank is calling it one of the most complicated, perhaps the most complex real estate deal that they have been involved in. So these tax credits, the Opportunity Fund, the tax credits here, and these grants are really what make this project possible. Because at the end of a 7-year compliance period, we do what we say we're going to do, we build what we say we're going to build there. All of these things functionally come off the balance sheet at the end of 7 years. So all this money comes in and just disappears off the balance sheet because the investors will have realized their gains through the payment of those tax credits at the end of 7 years. And then the project goes and refinances as a traditional real estate project where the income simply pays the debt and leaves a small amount left over. On these 21 funding sources, 463 closing documents that had to be approved by 33 independent attorneys. So the last 6 weeks of the project, we had bi-weekly calls with 33 attorneys to go through 463 closing documents. So Jim Brown, who was one of the partners along with me and who had to sign off on these various documents on behalf of the redevelopment group, has a picture in his office actually a few days before the closing was to occur, of 1,450 signature pages. Those are signature pages only. Yeah, original signatures that had to be signed. So people ask, why did this take so long? Well, there's a reason. There's a reason this took so long and it was so complex. And just to kind of highlight that, that's the deal flow for the project closing. So that's the players that are involved, those are the grant and loan sources, how the project gets funded, and how everything kind of ties out at the end. That is why it required 463 documents to get to the closing at the end of the day. So fortunately, we have very smart attorneys from Downs Rathman Martin who help navigate this, and kind of the lead attorneys on the project. But that's really what a new market tax credit deal looks like. We are, to our knowledge, we're the only project in the country that has combined historic tax credits, new market tax credits, and Opportunity Fund, all of which are federal programs targeted at historic buildings and New Market and Opportunity Zone monies targeted at challenged census tracts. To our knowledge, again, we're the only project in the country that's combined all three of those programs. And I think this was recognized, if you were at the groundbreaking, the governor was there, noted this is it was the largest groundbreaking that he had been to since he was governor, and probably since before he became governor. And he really thought that was reflective of, again, the importance of the project, not only to the Bennington community and the region, but really to the state as a whole. Congressman Peter Welch noted the project as a model for rural economic development, and I can attest to that fact, that I'm getting contacts certainly weekly and sometimes daily from other communities across the country just saying, how did this happen? How did you bring these pieces together? Deputy Secretary of Commerce Ted Brady said this is the most important thing happening in economic development in Vermont, period, and that includes Chittenden County. And Ben Alderton from US Bancorp, they were the investors who purchased the tax credits. They do 3 to 5 of these tax credit deals a week. He said without question this is the most complex real estate deal that US Bank has been involved in. So it gives you some measure of what we were able to accomplish as a community in Bennington with Putnam Phase 1. Sorry. I don't know if you picked up any of that. My apologies.
Sorry.
And so not to rest on anybody's laurels, the group is actively planning, or certain members of the group. We have a separate redevelopment group that's come together to undertake Phase 2. So that group has formed. There's equity in, and they're continuing to recruit for additional equity for Phase 2. We expect, at this point, Phase 2 will be a single, there's a new entryway here with Old Castle. I should note that Old Castle, as part of the Phase 1 closing, was spun out and sold to Old Castle Theater, so they actually own their building for the first time in their 48-year history. So Old Castle owns this. There's a new entryway into the project here, and Phase 2 we expect will happen right there. Right now we're looking at a single building, roughly five floors, 11,000-ish square feet per floor. We expect that the medical system will be an anchor tenant there, 1 full floor, 2 clinical uses of some configuration. There are 4 possibilities that they're in discussions with various partners of theirs. So we expect 11 or 12,000 square feet of medical use. There may be some educational use. Castleton has expressed a potential interest in moving some educational classrooms downtown. We'll have some retail liner stores along the street to create an active streetscape in that building. Small retail, because we know that's the most challenging of these components to fill by far. And then we're expecting 30 market rate housing units on the upper 3 floors there. We're targeting a closing late next year or early in 2021, and we would expect construction would be similar to what we're anticipating for Phase 1, which is 15 to 18 months. So ideally, we'll roll out of construction and open Phase 1 and roll right into construction of Phase 2 of the project. So that's where things stand. I wanted to leave plenty of time for folks to ask questions.
Are you able to offer underground parking on this next part?
Given that there's a river running under all of downtown Bennington at about 4 feet below the surface, unless you're parking your boat, yeah, underground, no underground parking. And parking is simply not an issue on this site. I mean, Bennington has a very serious parking problem. It has way darn too much parking. Okay, we did a study at the Bennington County Regional Commission. We did it over a 1.5 year period and looked at the available parking in downtown. At the highest peak, at any time in downtown Bennington, 27% of the available parking units were filled. 27%. That was the peak at any given time in a 1.5 year period. So parking is certainly not an issue. Sure.
Has any of the construction work been granted to local contractors?
Yeah, the largest single contract in the project is with Jerome Construction. Hayden Plumbing and Heating also has some. We did direct solicitation of local contractors. Several decided not to bid simply because of staffing issues or because of federal requirements or other regions. But we certainly worked hard through our Facebook notifications. We asked Red Loaf to reach out to local contractors to get bid packages out. So there are a number of local contractors involved. Red Loaf also has done 3 hiring fairs and is continuing to look for folks on site. They're trying to hire 55 people who would be full-time employees for the project and beyond, working directly for Red Loaf. So if you know people who are interested or working in construction and still looking for work, Red Loaf is hiring. They could probably start next week. We really have tried to do what we can to see that local contractors and local people benefit from this project. Chris?
I'm just curious, where does the Vermont Community Foundation money fall? Which section?
That's a good question. So the Vermont Community Foundation money comes in, comes in here because they had a $500,000 pre-development loan that helped us bridge us through some of the pre-development period, and then they rolled that money in at financial closing into preferred equity. So that's part of that. Betsy?
So I know at the Rec Center project, we're spending a lot of time thinking about healthy buildings, green buildings, however you want to say it these days. Can you tell us a little thought? Are you doing solar? Are we going to have some car charging stations? Those types of things that
We have
people are
Efficiency
looking
Vermont has provide a $100,000 grant. They've been involved in the planning of the project since the inception. We're also looking at the possibility of doing solar on top of the Winslow building. Due to the mechanicals, it doesn't make sense. We can't do it on top of the hotel. But the Winslow building is relatively open, so we're looking to do some type of solar on top of there. We have high efficiency heat pumps, heating for all of the units. Will have their own high efficiency heating units. We're being as thermally efficient as possible. So I don't know if you've been by downtown, but most of these are boarded up. Now these windows are boarded up. The reason is each of the windows in the hotel have been removed, have gone on a truck to Boston
Yeah, that's what I heard.
to be repaired and made more thermally efficient, and then they're going back in. So we're keeping the original built
Which is really
windows in
nice,
the
I
building.
think. Because there's concern that people think you're going to do away with those windows, and I said that I.
No, they're boarded up now because they're in Boston getting repaired and made more efficient, and then they're going back
That's
in
great.
where they were.
At 5 stories, will that next building project be the highest in Bennington?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it would be taller than the Benmont Mill. I think that's also 5 stories, and plus it has the bell tower, so it will be bumping up against the maximum height in Bennington right now is 60 feet. Actually, this came up at a planning meeting last night. The town's looking at doing some form-based zoning, and there's maybe some concern that 60 feet is too much. I think not in downtown. I mean, I think 60 feet, which is not really quite 6 floors, is probably appropriate in at least in the urban setting, North Street and Main Street, South Street. So it'll be the tallest building downtown.
Our fire engines will reach the top floor?
They will.
Good.
They reach the Benmont Mill, so yeah. Jay?
Yeah, I just want to say, and answer Doug, the apartment complex behind the post office is 5 stories.
Oh, okay.
That was built in the 60s.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It is.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Bill, could you describe a little more the residential apartments? Are they condos? Are they?
They're all for lease. They're all rental apartments, and that's a requirement of New Market tax credits. We couldn't have condominiums at least at the outset, so everything there is for lease. It's an interesting mix. We have 4 units. We have 12 units in the project, which are at 80 to 120% of median income, based on the VACB funding and the New Market tax credit funding. And then the rest of the units in phase 1 are market rate units. Really, realistically, given what the market will bear in Bennington, the 80 to 120% median income requirement didn't cause us to change the pricing on the units at all. Pricing will range from $800 for the small, $900 for the smaller efficiency units up to about 22 or 2,300 for the largest two-bedroom units with balconies.
I think the new market tax credit program is fairly new. And, you know, the IRS is always tweaking the tax code. To what extent does phase two depend on the continuation of programs like the three tax credits, types of tax credits you mentioned?
So phase two, historic tax credits, because there'll be new bills, won't be an element of phase two. Without new market tax credits, I don't see a path forward for phase two. The good news is that allocation that we'd be relying on for phase two is already out with the various community development entities, and we have a lead on a couple of them. Actually, one national community development entity featured Putnam Phase 2 as its premier project in its application for tax credits. It will be a little more challenging than it might have been to get allocation this year because New England was shut out completely in the most recent round of new market tax credit allocation. And that was a political calculation by the Fed. It's not a red state, blue state thing. It was targeted to get allocation to places where they think there are the most kind of convincible representatives who will vote to re-up the program when it comes in front of Congress next year. So it was a political maneuver, but not a red-blue political maneuver. So but New England is solid. All of our representatives throughout New England understand the value of the new American tax credit program. So the money went primarily to the Midwest and the South.
So you really only need that in place for 1 year. And then
Well, for 1 year,
the initial
for 1 year, we're good. And there's another allocation which is coming out next January. So we have 2 potential rounds of allocation for phase 2.
Okay.
Gets dicey for, there's still that corner lot where the gas station is. If that becomes a phase 3 and there's no new market tax credit program, it becomes a little more challenging.
Are you gonna, the second phase is to be done by the town, am I correct?
No,
Oh, okay, you're gonna help them with it, or?
it'll be a private development just like the
Okay.
first. Now, there's some possibility that some of the cleanup and site work there'll be a request of the town to do that through tax increment financing bond. That decision has not yet been made. But it would be an eligible expense if the town could use a TIF bond to cover the $350,000 or $400,000 of remaining remediation, it won't be covered by the $500,000 grant, to do some upgrades around the street here. And I will note that the project's actually doing some stormwater upgrades for the town on its dime along Franklin Lane here already. And then ideally, I think the project would like for all of the parking here to become public parking and be managed by the town ultimately, and have it all be public. But that acquisition, the parking lot here, and the remediation would all be eligible expenses that could be done through a TIF bond. Now that would require approval of the community at a March meeting or some other duly warned meeting, but that decision has not yet been made. But the project itself will be a private project just like phase 1. John?
Bill, there's $7.5 million in debt. Who's assuming that?
So the Bennington Redevelopment Group owns that debt and is responsible for repaying that debt. Okay?
Are you aware of the concept of embodied energy? Okay, you should talk to me afterwards because I've heard too many people think that the only way we become green is with solar panels. Repairing existing structure and taking care of the building that's there that has already been built with energy and materials, fossil fuels, etc., is much greener than tearing down and rebuilding. And when we need to, that's why the windows are being repaired. They are much better windows than we can make today. And the electricity will be upgraded. It will be the kind that turns on and off when you go in and out of a room. It'll use less electricity. The plumbing will be more efficient and use less water. Everything we're doing is to be able to be more conservative with what we do. I'll talk to you at another time about more of this, but I don't see it in, people want the thing. You can see technology. A lot of it is not technology, it's intelligent, thoughtful use of what we have.
Yeah.
So,
Ask the two poor guys who were going through brick by brick to
Yes.
figure out which ones were suitable for recycling last week. Literally, there was a pile of bricks as big as this room, and they were going through one by one to figure out which ones are suitable for recycling.
I keep putting it on,
Thank you.
and
That's a
it's
great point.
like I don't wanna be the only person.
Thank you.
Phil, will you have a couple of minutes
Yeah,
afterwards
sure.
to
Yeah.
field other questions? All right, well, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
It's
I've got it, don't worry, I've got your answer. I've got your answer.